Welcome to Biztech's Property Show, the show where we talk about property markets regionally and globally and give you insights into how you can manage your existing property, get better returns, and also help you to make better decisions about your future purchases. Our focus on the show today is on Greater Springfield in Australia, which is located just right on Brisbane's doorstep as Australia's newest city. Now, situated in one of Australia's fastest growing urban growth corridors, it has a planned CBD that is twice the size of Brisbane's. Now, here to tell us more about the Greater Springfield area and why it's the city of the future is the visionary who started it all in 1992, Maha Sinnathamby, the chairman of the Greater Springfield City Group. Welcome to the show, Maha.
Thanks very much, Brian. And I'm very pleased to be interviewed by yourself. You can give me a very hard time and I'm happy to answer all the questions because this is a true story. It's an inspiration which I would like the audience to enjoy.
Now, let's start then by giving the audience a picture of the situation today. What is Greater Springfield all about today?
Today, after about 29 years of experience of having worked on a project with many ups and downs, many ups and downs, it has now had experience over 19 billion Australian dollars to date, and it is moving at the rate of about $1 billion per annum. And of that money, about 8.9 billion has come from the state and federal government. If you can get $1 from the state and federal government, you are doing very well. But what it does show is the state and federal government are totally wedded to this new city. This is the only city that has been built since Australian Federation, the only city being Canberra, and this is the second city. So to the nation and to the state, this is a very valuable piece of asset. One thing I can tell you is, as you started off, no one wanted to buy this site when it came on the market, and I saw an opportunity where others saw that as a problem. Now the challenge was how to acquire it. We had very little money, and I won't go into the details of it. But can I tell you this? The reason I bought this is, those of us who are not sculptors, we look at a rock and we see a large rock. A sculptor looks at a rock and that sculptor says, I can see a very beautiful face.
And that's what you saw when you bought that 7,000 acre plot of land in 1992.
Yes. Yep. And that we saw a city looking at us and say, bring me out, bring me out. And can I tell you this, that there does not exist anywhere in this country outside of our capital city a large land mass of 7,000 acres or close to 3,000 hectares anywhere outside Perth, Adelaide, Melbourne or Sydney. So when you get such a large land mass, only 26 kilometers from a major capital city, you say, what is wrong with this? We have to grab this. Okay. Yes, it had a whole heap of problems, but the challenge was to take hold of it. And our research shows, and you want to check this very carefully, such a large landmass does not exist outside any of the capital cities in UK or in USA. So this is very unique even on the world scene. There is one site outside Pennsylvania, but that is 46 kilometers away from Pennsylvania City. So this to me was a very unique opportunity and I had to take it on.
But Maha, at that time, so obviously I'm sure the vision has changed. What did you see at that time? As you said, you used the sculptor analogy because you, the visionary, you and your partner saw something that others didn't see. Others saw the problems, you saw the opportunity. Could you walk us through the various stages in terms of how your vision evolved? Starting perhaps with the initial vision and then what you thought in the first 5 years?
Well, first of all, as I said, you had to have a vision, and our vision was to create Australia's newest city. And the only other city that I've said is Canberra. And our challenge was to bring about a new city.
So
Now,
from the very beginning, Maha, that was your vision. You wanted
that
to
was
create a new
that
city.
was that not to the extent what it is today. It was a smaller vision, but the vision grew bigger and bigger and bigger and more exciting. And also, you must remember that there was two attempts by the federal government to create a new city other than Canberra. One was Albury Wodonga, which was started by Prime Minister Whitlam, and it was wiped out when the new Prime Minister came. They said, no, we cancelled that. So we did not have a second city. The second attempt was the multi-function police that came 15 years after the first attempt, and that took 10 years of deliberation, and it did not happen. And the chap who headed the multi-function police project came up to Springfield at that stage, which was about 15 years old, and said, this is the second city that we are going to experience, and it is happening in silence. So the challenge was, how do we bring this city? The first and foremost was you got to get approvals. When we went to the state government to get an approval, they said, first of all, they did not want to see me, but I'll cut the story short. But when the minister did see me, he said, I think he did this trying to think that whether I will jump over the hurdle. He said, in order to get an approval for a new city, there are no planning documents. The only planning document that exists is for Canberra, and that is 85 years old. So he said, in order to get approval, you have to special legislation and an act of parliament. Anybody would have said, I've got enough problems, I'm off.
But yes, with the act of parliament, that's a high bar to hurdle to cross.
So I said to myself, well, we are going to go through this, and we are going to see an end to this to make it happen. And it took 3.5 years of negotiations between a very difficult government who saw all the problems, and finally it went to Parliament on a night, and all the 89 parliamentarians, we had 89 parliamentarians of all sides of politics, three sides of politics, government, opposition, and the independents. They debated it furiously for 1.5 hours. On that night, all the 89 turned up because this was a nation building exercise. All the 89 hands went up on that night, giving for the first time, giving birth to a new city for the first time other than Canberra. Now, what a moment it was. And so immediately there was a joy, but there was also a responsibility put on your shoulders that their government has approved it unanimously, and we got to deliver it. That was the challenge, the next challenge on. But that's the start of the journey.
It wasn't a smooth journey. 1999, you had some problems. The economies collapsed again in 1999. Tell us about how what the challenges were and how you overcame that.
Well, we started selling off the blocks of land, and we were making very good progress. After about 3 years, the market collapsed. Collapsed means it collapsed. There was no sale going on. And for 9 months, we could not pay our interest. And the banks wanted to foreclose us. And I'm cutting the story short. And I won't hide anything because I want you to ask me all the questions. The bank wanted to foreclose us. They said in a nice way, we give you 30 days before we appoint somebody to look after your asset. What they meant was there was going to be a liquidator. Yeah. Well, we took that on, and I won't go into the details. It was a very, very painful period when you saw the whole dream come to a crash. We went through that, and within about 45 days, we managed to solve the problem. And we got the project back on the road. Back on the road, we were moving on very well for the next 3.5 years, selling land and making a residential community first before a city. And finally, the council wrote us a letter and said, you've reached enough residential activity. You've got to have a freeway now to extend it further. The freeway was going to cost $200 million. And we said, how do you find that money? And I'll cut the story short. I managed to talk to the only person who could give approval was to the premier. And I won't tell you the process I had to go through to get him, but I did see him. And he said, why do I support a developer with public money? He was very blunt and said, Premier, you are not supporting a developer. You are supporting a region of unlimited opportunities. Are you going to approve it? That really touched this Premier. He felt very deeply touched. I met all his bureaucrats one morning, and finally, can I tell you the meeting started off with the chairman of that meeting. He said, the Premier has asked me to see you. You don't need this road for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 50 years. Go and read my book. This is the truth. And finally, we managed. He said, you don't need the road for 50 years. And finally, it was open. The road was opened. The Premier was there with 4 ministers, and they said, this is amazing, including the gentleman who refused to approve it.
Maha, how did you then craft? So you had the vision, but how did you craft the image, the premium image of the resort? You started off by building a golf course, and then people started to buy the blocks of land. And in a traditional Australian sort of fashion, it's an urban sprawl. You buy the blocks of land, you start to build housing there. But then community growth is always about not just people moving, but it's about jobs as well. What are the key attractions that help you to attract people to Springfield? And then how did you then manifest itself into attracting corporations and therefore jobs into the area?
Well, the first thing was we advertised it as a new city, a new beginning. We were very bold, and many took it on. And we outlined the plan of a new city. But can I also say simultaneously, because I could talk for hours, but simultaneously, we went and studied 15 master plan communities around the world. 13 of them were in US, 2 was in UK. And the 13 ones that we saw in USA was amazing. All the CEOs of that were very good. They showed us a project. But one thing every one of those cities had was it either did not have a major educational facilities, or it did not have a railway line, or it did not have a university campus, or it did not have a hospital complex. One or the other was missing. And one was actually a dormitory suburb where people left the town in the daytime and came out at night. It was dead during the daytime. Then we studied the city in UK, Milton Keynes, a 40,000 square acre development undertaken by the British government. We studied that a lot. We studied all these. Then we went to the world market and chose and gave a competition to 6 leading architects in the USA. And we picked an architect who has done some work in Malaysia. You all would know. It's called Skidmore, Owen and Merrill, 14 Wall Street, USA, New York. And that is when the real vision expanded to create the most unique city in the world. And I want you to question me this very hard. Why is this a unique city in the world? And I want you to really ask me a hard question, and I'll find you an answer. I'll give you an answer.
Yes, because Maha, you made some very bold claims in a CNBC article that it would be the next Silicon Valley. And you said that, Silicon Valley was done 85 years ago, and this is the new vision of Silicon Valley. So tell us about it. What is your vision? Why is this the most unique city in the world?
I'll tell you why, because it's built on 3 cornerstones. One is education. And I say always is education is the currency of the future. It's the only currency that you can cash in the world. And it's the only currency that cannot be stolen from the owner. So 44% of our population are in education. I have 11 schools, and I've got 1 university, which is going to have 3 universities. So coming back to Silicon Valley, we have got a site which is about 112 hectares, which has got approval for half the size of the CBD of Sydney as a commercial precinct, which is our new Silicon Valley. And Silicon Valley started off with Stanford University hugging that land. And that Stanford University gave fuel to what came out as Silicon Valley. But the issues were they had multitude of ownerships. So we have, in our case, 3 universities who will fuel and drive what Stanford University was doing as one force to create the most unique experience in an IT facility the world hasn't seen. And I'll tell you this, that we have this all planned, all approved, and finally what's most interesting is it's under one ownership. The Silicon Valley did not have the one ownership. When you have got ownership under one hand, you can control the environment very strongly. And what we have planned is the latest version of Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley has done very well. It has contributed a lot to the US economy. It has added a lot of IT knowledge to the world. But we are gathering all that information and creating the new world of technology, which is much more advanced.
Maha, in order to realize that vision, you literally have to attract not only money, but expertise and talent globally. Today, where are you at in terms of your population size, and what is the composition of locals versus foreign? Because essentially, to realize your vision, it's got to be an Asia Pacific story. You've got to be an innovation hub. That's what you're describing. You've got the 3 universities as a catalyst. They've got to be an innovation hub. There've got to be companies around it. If you look at Silicon Valley, the innovation that comes out of that, research collaboration with the universities, you've basically got to attract global names, the Facebooks, the Googles, the Huaweis, come and invest in Greater Springfield.
Well, first of all, what we getting a lot of attraction from our press releases that has happened. Mainly it is coming from Asia, companies who do value education and who do value the enormous benefit of IT taking the world on, the enormous progress that's going to happen to the IT world. Down here, we have a knowledge population. As I said, 44% to 46% of our population are in learning. So I've got a huge amount of young youth coming out, highly trained from the time they were babies, from 3 years old, fully trained in the new world of IT, which you don't have elsewhere. We have also got 3 universities in one spot, and they are attracting.
Which universities, Maha?
Well, I can't mention 2 of them because they are in the final process of being signed up.
Okay.
And they have master planned it. But we have got University of New South Wales here. We have got all these 3 universities are here, and they are concentrating and they want to improve our IT knowledge. The IT knowledge here has to improve a lot. And we have got one IT company in the world who are very, very serious of moving their presence here. Already discussions are going on very, very advanced. And as you probably know, Bill Clinton, when he wanted to upskill USA in terms of IT knowledge, he gave 5,000 residential status to Indian companies to come up and set the IT facilities. And that gave it a big kickstart. So yes, we have got inquiries like that coming in now and saying, because you have got an educated population, because you got the university, and because it's a new city, we would love to play this game. And that's what this market is all about. So we are attracting to turbocharge our IT facilities to leading companies around the world. And so far, we've got reasonable amount of interest from 2 companies who think they could take a place here.
What sort of partnership and investments are you looking at? So many of our audience run large companies, medium-sized companies. They sit on boards. They're high net worth individuals. Why should they invest, therefore, in Springfield? You've given us the reason for that, because traditionally, many of them are probably investing in Sydney and Melbourne.
Well, the thing is, I can answer that. Sydney and Melbourne. I studied at Sydney, University of New South Wales. I didn't want to go to Sydney and to expand my business experience. I saw Queensland as a state, unlimited opportunities. Unlimited opportunities. We are 1/3 the size of India. Queensland alone is 1/3 the size of India. unlimited opportunities. I can see it day in and day out. Why should I go to Sydney and compete with all the fellas in a limited platform? So that's why they should come here. It's got a great climate, a very strong interest by the state and federal governments to expand it and give a lot of help. And plus, it's in an area that's fully planned and where you can control the land. You can go to Sydney, you'll be struggling to get that much of land mass, even 60 kilometers from Sydney CBD or Melbourne CBD. Now, so you can play the game, but you must have the land to play the game. And that's why this is so attractive.
So Maha, therefore there's a couple of ways we can invest, especially because our audience is fairly broad. We as a company, as a property developer from Singapore, from Malaysia, from Indonesia, can I come and buy a subsection from you and then develop a piece of land?
Yes, you can, provided you have the credentials to develop it and not to rely on the future increase in value that's happening here at Springfield. Can I tell you this? In the year 2000, we were selling land at $55 a meter. Today it's $850 a meter. The values are just exploding because of the master plan city it is going to be. And so they're coming here to not play the real estate transaction. We want them to start a business. And we want to find companies who are going to turbocharge this project in the IT field. And it's not only in the IT field, because on the knowledge precinct, we've got approval for a 1,200-bed hospital, which is being developed by one of the leading hospital operators, which is MATER, M-A-T-E-R, and they've been in existence for 110 years. They are developing, they've got a license to develop 1,200 beds. And we are talking about the healthcare expenditure that's going to be enormous worldwide, enormous. And to have that approval is hard even in Australia. So we've got an approval on 52-hectare site to create the most unique health experience this world has not seen. We brought Harvard Medical International as our advisors, and they worked on this land for 3 years. And they said such a project of healthcare, all forms of human healthcare in one spot, does not exist anywhere in the world. Quote, Bruce Downton, who is now the Vice Chancellor of Macquarie University. So we've got that much of knowledge from Harvard Medical International, and we've got companies who want to come and invest here in Australia. And in Australia, Queensland is the best spot because you've got the facilities, the approvals, and everything ready to go. And can I tell you this, that we would find that very attractive for a company to come. And lastly, I'll say to you, since the COVID, Australia is a shining star in the world for residents to come and live. It's a shining star. We have got inquiries from UK, USA, everyone who wants to come here for a peaceful country, a country that is twice the size of India, unlimited opportunities. Where else do you go?
Maha, if I'm a individual investor, I'm buying a property for my family long term, or it's a portfolio investment. How much do your properties start at in terms of investments?
Oh, well, that's a very easy question. Buying a piece of residential land is the easiest thing. As I said to you, the land value went from $55 to $850 within that 20-year period. But so that's the easiest thing. But we want to attract and to turbocharge this project in IT, in health, and in education. They are our 3 cornerstones, and they would make an unlimited amount of money. Whatever they want to do, they can check with me, they can be satisfied with it. But I can tell you, the project here will be far, far superior than any other part of the world. But they have to do their homework. And I'm happy to answer all their hard questions to do that. But we will be very, very selective as to who it is. We are having inquiries. We have eliminated quite a few of them. We have said, no, we don't think that this is good enough for you or us. And we are only now selecting on a few companies that are really capable of exploiting this opportunity and doing well for themselves.
Now, Maha, final question. You are 82 years old this December. My father is an amazing 80-year-old who I admire, but you take it to the next level. Now, in your own words, Greater Springfield is only 25% finished. Who have you entrusted to continue your vision? You have 4 children. Are your children involved in the business or your grandchildren involved in the business?
I've got a business partner who has been with me for 37 years. We started this project together. He's much younger than me. And I've also got 4 children who've been trained from the cradle. But above that, I've got universities who've got longevity beyond anybody, right? They have their own plans and their own reason to be here. I've got a General Electric here as a major tenant. I've got major companies like Lend-Lease. I've got major companies like Mirvac who are developing the shopping. There's enough energy here to keep this place going for their own vested interest. There are many, many companies who've got a strong vested interest, like going to Sydney for you and saying what's going to happen to me. Doesn't matter, because Sydney will keep on going. Springfield will be keeping on going. And please understand, and I want you to check this, such a situation, such an opportunity does not exist anywhere in the world. Please check it. And you can give me all the hard questions. Such an opportunity is not going to come about, but we are very, very selective as to who is going to come and play the game.
Maha, thank you for taking the time to share your vision and your story with us.
That's all right. I'm very glad. I think you're a very good interviewer. Okay, Brian, we look forward to catching up with you.
Thank you, Maha. We've been speaking to Maha Sinnathamby, the chairman of Springfield City Group, on Biztech's Property Show. I'm Brian Fernandez. Check out our Facebook and LinkedIn pages, as well as our website, www.biztech.asia. Please like and subscribe to our various platforms. Thank you very much for tuning in.